So I've been following this case of what happened on May 10th at Back to Eden Bakery, which is a gluten-free vegan bakery in in North Portland on Alberta Street. And I'm going to summarize this and also re-upload the video of the woman in question at the center of the story, since her formerly public videos are now unable to be accessed. So here's what we know. On Thursday, May 10th, Miss Lillian Green, she's an equity director at the Oregon Department of Education, entered Back to Eden Bakery after it had already closed. When she was declined service, she went outside and promptly recorded video, saying she was not served because she's a person of color. Now, in a follow-up video, she demanded that the people responsible, the clerks, be fired. Now, by the next day, the bakery's co-owner, John Blomgren, issued an explanation of what happened. He was very contrite, he apologized, and he announced that the two young female employees working that night have been fired. Today is June 2nd, and up until now, the only traits we know of the employees is that they were two young females. Although, in a post that was sent out today on Back to Eden's Bakery, they did mention that the women fired were white. That's the first time that's been disclosed. Anyways, that statement of apology was deemed unsatisfactory to social justice activists who said the bakery was still too defensive. So then the co-owner issued a second, much longer apology spanning several thousand words and actually offered to pay Ms. Green to train his staff on how to be racially inclusive. Now, the bakery will host a reparations happy hour on June 20, which is organized by a local activist and former failed mayoral candidate named Cameron Whitten. So at that event, the premise is Black, Brown, and Indigenous people will get $10 cash for attending, and whites are not allowed to attend, but they can donate to the reparations donation pool for the event. And so the story is now being picked up by local and national media now that when I broke it on my Twitter, I also have written a bit about it in a Wall Street Journal column that came out yesterday, June 1st, called "Would You Like Some Strife with Your Meal?" You can find the links to all this stuff in the description for this. So I think to the bakery's credit, they were very transparent. They did their own investigation, and did a minute by minute breakdown based on the security footage camera. So their earlier statements have now been deleted. They've hired a professional PR person to write all their statements now, but their older comments have been archived. And so I'm going to quote from the minute-by-minute explanation because it's quite illuminating and sets context for what happened. So what I'm going to read next for you is a direct quote from Back to Eden Bakery. At 9:02 p.m., we were unusually busy for closing time, which is stated as 9 p.m. everywhere that our hours appear. Most of the seats were filled, and there were 4 people in line waiting to be served. At 9:03 p.m., our employee turns the open sign light off. At 9:04 p.m., 2 more white women walked in and lined up to be served. At this point, the customers present are informed that we are officially closed. At 9:06 p.m., Lillian enters and stands in line to be served, assuming, given how many people are still inside and the doors unlocked, that we are still open. Lillian is told that we are closed and the last 2 women in line are the last to be served. After that, she exits the building and begins taking her first video, end quote. So from here, it seems rather innocuous. Sometimes around closing time, it gets busy. According to the fire marshal, a business cannot lock a door while customers are still inside. So I've seen it floated around online that the business should have locked the door so that customers don't come in. Well, they're not allowed to do that. People are still finishing up their meals around 9. So some people came in a couple minutes. Let's see, by 9:03, they turn off the lights. 9:04, they let people know, hey, this is our last call. Who's in line now? This is what we're serving. Somebody else happened to come in after that. That would be Miss Lillian Green. And they turned her away. And she interpreted that as a rejection of her because of her race. And she's a professional equity activist. She works for it as a public employee for the state. She is a doctoral student at Lewis and Clark. This is mentioned in her video. So it's just, I think when you look at the actors involved and potentially the power grab that is open, that the bakery has allowed themselves to be browbeat into, is quite, how should I say this? I guess illuminating. I guess if you just sort of analyze the situation. So I don't want to take Miss Lillian Green's comments out of context or anything. So this video, for transparency, is going to have her entire videos that she formerly made public as part of this. So you can see for yourself, and we'll see how the story continues to develop as of the early afternoon on June 2nd. The bakery has limited public access to their posts. You have to log in to be able to see their statements now that are written by their PR person. And that's a bit strategic. It means it makes it harder for people to archive their comments. So I think if you care about the story, and certainly with people involved deleting things that they say because it may not be politically expedient after some point, I think it would be good for all of us to archive what we can. So I've been taking screenshots. I think it's quite fascinating in particular that Mr. Cameron Whitten, which is sort of one of the behind-the-scenes shadowy actors in all of this, he's the one who organized the Reparations Happy Hour event, which the bakery will host on June 2nd. He said that the bakery's statement is unsatisfactory, and I'm just going to read you what he says. He's a professional activist. Okay, quote, "No, I am not down with this message. Back to Eden. I think you are causing further harm with people of color rather than helping. I, as a black person, have tried reaching out multiple times to help you realize your own racism in your communications faux pas. I'm disgusted by the alt-right attacks against your business. They are unfair. That being said, I am disappointed in your ability to be actually anti-racist and follow the lead of black people doing this work. Do better." Somebody follows up and says, can you elaborate on what you think they should be doing differently? And this is his response. "I am not going to get into the deep details because I have things to do and I don't think I need to overly explain myself to white people. Back to Eden reached out to me when the first crisis happened, and from the beginning I have been generous with my time and the energy to help out. Knowing that they don't have black people in leadership, I don't think on staff at all, I know that my perspective was critical and helpful. During this exhausting process of trying to help Back to Eden regain trust with black Portlanders, I feel like I have only been half listened to. The white fragility and white centering Israel, and I feel uncomfortable having my name and organization aligned with Back to Eden while it has failed to live up to its anti-racist so-called values. I hope white people reading this refrain asking me to further explain myself and believe my experience, end quote. Very fascinating when you see comments like this. This is almost, it's a tactic you see frequently from activists. They don't want to be able to explain themselves, so they just said that, I volunteered my labor and all that. That's quite... I'm just going to be direct. That's the bogus claim, Mr. Whitten. You've been on Tucker Carlson. You have benefited from your activism from this, and you've gained followers. You've been interviewed by the New York Times. You've been contacted by media. Your followers have increased. So I don't buy that this is I'm not going to give my labor because I'm tired. You just need to believe me. No, I think anybody who is not blinded by ideology, and this can see through what's going on. There are people interested in a power grab, and the bakery is getting beaten into submission through all of this. And unfortunately, they think that that is what they need to do. They said they're going to hire more. Let's see. They posted a Q&A on their Facebook page, and excuse me, let me find the post. Okay. One of the questions that they posted, and the answer is, what is Back to Eden doing to prevent discrimination moving forward? So, okay. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised. What they're going to do is going to be scheduling DIE training. DIE is a good acronym, stands for Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity, and anti-racism training. And instead, they're going to bring in professional equity educators. So it's just so fascinating that the woman making the big fuss about all this is a equity educator, and the people who stand to benefit financially from this are activists and equity educators. So I don't think this is as simple of a story as example of bias against a person of color. I don't think my particular phenotype attributes are necessarily that relevant to the story, but I'll throw it out anyways. I'm a queer person of color. My parents are refugees, and so it's just, I'm not motivated by ideology in this. I want to pursue truth, and clearly there are some shady people involved, and I'm trying my best to bring awareness to it. Okay, this is the first time I've done, I guess, an audio commentary, but I hope it was helpful. Links will be in the description, and Miss Lillian Green's full comments will follow now. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me just talk about this place. So, for example, let me just get the name of this so everyone can see this. So, I walk up into the location on Alberta, trying to get some dessert from this vegan place. And even though I'm still in the store right now, 2 white women is in front of me, and they said, like, oh, I'm sorry, we're only serving them. And that was going to be the last people that they're going to serve.
As weird as I thought that was?
That is weird.
What the fuck was that?
So I'm going to put this on Facebook, and I'm going to blast their ass because I think it's inappropriate for me to be in the store in line, the door's not locked, and they refuse to serve me after I'm in line. So they can live that life, but they about to get all blasted on Facebook about this shit.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, my name's Lillian Green, and I'm right now sitting in the comfort of my home, but I want to tell you about a disturbing, heart-wrenching experience that I had tonight. So I'm on Alberta, and as we all know, as I'm a native Oregonian, I grew up in Northeast Portland. I grew up on William Ave in Northeast Portland, and I like to say prior to the New Seasons, growing up there when Willie's Barbershop was still going strong. So I'm in Northeast Portland tonight, and I'm on Alberta Avenue. And every time I go on one of the gentrified blocks in Portland, I try to be really selective about the locations that I'm spending my money at, because I know not only the racialized history, the racialized gentrification that happened within many of these blocks. So I try to be really cautious about where I go and spend my money. So I get on Alberta. I walk a couple blocks, I find a ramen place. I sit there and have dinner. It's a great place. As I'm coming back down, I decide I want to get some dessert. So I'm walking down and I walk past this bakery I've never seen before, Back to Eden Bakery. So I'm seeing multiple flags hanging up in their window as if they're trying to be really inclusive. And you know what? I'm going to go to this location because it seems like they are about their business in this location. I walk into the location. I'm standing in line. There's only 3 people left in line. There's 2 women that I'm assuming in front of me that were white, and then there was myself. So we're standing in line. I'm looking at the display cases. I'm looking at the menu on the wall, trying to identify what I'm going to select. There's other people sitting around at tables, eating, chatting, talking. Small, quaint place. So I was like, okay. So as I'm waiting in line, the woman behind the counter tells me that, we're no longer serving. We're closed and we're no longer serving. Even though there's 2 women in front of me that was doing the exact same thing I was doing, looking at a menu, trying to identify what's going on, out of 3 people in the line, 1 person did not get served. And the only person that did not get served in that line was the 1 person of color that was left in that line. And when she first said it, I was confused. I was just like, this can't be happening. She is literally serving the 2 women in front of me right now. This can't be happening. And then I was like, what? And then she said it again. And I was like, you know what? At that moment, I said what I said. I walked out of the store. 1, I wasn't going to sit there and then argue with her about why I should have the privilege of spending my money in an establishment that is solely based off of and creating a welcoming environment for people to go in there so they can buy their items. I wasn't going to sit there and argue that. 2, I wasn't going to sit there and pretend that the location I selected, because it appeared to be trying to have a inclusive, intersectional conversation and trying to be, public with that. That's why I selected your location, because it appeared, I heard a couple things from some people like, hey, this could be a good place to go. So here's a couple things I want y'all to think about. 1, I was denied service in your establishment. I was straight up denied service. There was 3 people left in line. 2 white women in front of me were served. And even though I was the last person in line, I was told that they were not going to serve me. Period, point blank. If you would like to have a discussion or argument about this, I will direct you to go back to your security camera footage and see what actually went down. When I left your establishment, and there's another video, so I'm going to direct everyone that's watching this video to the second video I have. After I left the establishment, I started recording and explaining what exactly happened. Individuals were walking out of your store, letting me know, making comments, was that as weird as I thought it was? As I'm talking, other individuals walking out of your stores cheering me on about me having to post this video on Facebook, or posting multiple videos on Facebook about the way I was treated in your establishment. So I'm going to post this, and if you choose to not serve me, this Black cisgender woman, in your establishment, then you're choosing not to serve my community. You're choosing not to serve the allies in my community. So as I post this, and this will probably be shared places, people will probably start talking about this. I want y'all to understand a couple of things. 1, I don't want to see any tears. I don't want to hear how you're going to explain your way out of it, how you're going to talk about what it was and what it not was. I'm telling you what I experienced and what happened, and I'm telling you the clear facts. 3 people were left in your line for your store. 2 women were served, and 1 woman who they may not identify as women, but 2 individuals that I perceived to be women were served, and then I was denied service. The only Black person in your store, and it also appeared to be the only person of color in your store. So I'm going to leave this here. And again, I have another video. So again, when you hear this, I don't want to hear any shallow apologies. I don't want to see tears. I don't want to see people like, I didn't mean it. That's not what happened. I don't want to hear any of that, because guess what? I do equity work for a living. I'm really intentional about what I do, about what I say, where I go, and what I do, especially in the community in which I grew up in. And especially when I'm traveling on gentrified blocks like Alberta within the Portland metro area. So only thing that I want to see produced from this is, one, if you have individuals in your organization that cannot live up to the values in which you promote around inclusivity, then they need to go. Because what I experienced today should never happen to anybody else. Two, if you want to have an inclusive conversation, you can't just put up in your window. You can't just say, you just can't do that and act as if this is something that is inherent and built into your organizational structure, and if it's not. And last but not least, I'm writing my dissertation on creating equitable organizations. That's what I study. That's what gives me life, is really looking at how to create inclusive organizations, inclusive spaces for people to preside in. So one of these days, when I finish and publish my dissertation, I hope somebody on your management team, I hope individuals in your organization that runs this store actually reads that and understands that the superficial things that you do means absolutely nothing if the actions of the individuals that you hire to represent you speaks something different. And I'm not going to your store again. I'm not buying your stuff again. I'm going to post this, tell my friends not to go there. And I hope that this gets shared far and wide, because you don't get to deny service to anyone just because you want to. You don't get to make somebody feel a certain type of way just because you want to re-invoke some Jim Crow era feel because you don't want to serve. You don't want to serve individuals. But guess what? If you don't want to serve me, you don't want to serve my community either. So I hope you're happy. I hope you do something different about whoever was in that store making those decisions that decided that, out of those 3 individuals, one person wasn't going to get served. And guess what? That person was me. Have a good day.